Hello. So I'm live, and this notification is not going to go out because I've already burned through my three today. I've actually used four. I'm using a cyan thing. I only get an hour, and I've already used 0 minutes. I used 3 seconds because I paused it. There's a cream yellow. Oh, this one says white. 1 hour of Christmas white screen. Here's the lavender. Okay, that other one seemed a little bit more lilac. I'm going to go for the lavender. This is an ad, by the way. And we're gonna see what's up. There we go. I love lilacs, lavenders. One second. 9.5 hours. January 2024. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, anyway, so I just finished reading the second set of four signs: Libra, Scorpio, Leo, Virgo. Some of them were rough. Um, Others not so much. Some were rough, some were interesting. So I actually want to do I'm gonna pull a rune, and I'm gonna pull another page out of Russ's book where I build a spread in the shape of the rune around the rune. But I'm gonna alternate with Yggdrasil's and Crow Tarot and Runic Tarot. I keep looking at this. I'm running a dual setup right now, and I don't know which camera to look at. And if you're like, Patrick, dual setup, what do you mean? What are you talking about? This is what I'm talking about. So, I mean, I ain't got that much table, so we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. This is a thought. We'll see if it was a good one. The reason why the title of this video is 0, it's because that's the only number I could press on my keyboard. Because I don't have a lot of space, but who knows how long I won't have a lot of space. Maybe someday, one day soon, I'll have an entire office. Well, an entire office that I can use. Anyway, Earth Mason was just at the bottom, but who wants to come out for now, for today? I hope everyone had a happy whatever holiday you're celebrating right now with your loved ones, if you're with loved ones. If not, I hope you found a way to enjoy today. I know one of my friends said that this year he's choosing his peace because if he would have went home to visit family, he would not have had any. So, you sacral. With fail, the bottom of the deck. Number 13. I was actually just thinking about you because last time I went live, the personal Yggdrasil tree was budding. And I mentioned how it came out with a Flursa energy. It was that, Sagittarius in Station 13 or whatever. And the U personal Yggdrasil came out, and I was like, oh, usually our Ash personal Yggdrasil came out. And I was like, usually U is the medicine for the personal Yggdrasil, but it's like not today. That's weird. But then I think back on that budding Yggdrasil, and I go back to that, and I'm like, well, maybe I wonder if U would have come out, it would have, I don't know. Anyway. We'll get one from the top and one from the bottom. So we have Frey and Geffen claiming new ground and spring and new beginnings. New beginnings. I love this coming off of the U rune. So we got new beginnings and we got new ground. I am not going to have enough space to make this rune. So we're going to shift it. We're going to shift it a little bit. We're gonna shift it a little bit. And then I'm going to Crow off of the top and Runic Tarot off of the bottom. Oh, did y'all see that? It like flew in the air and still landed faces down. Perfect. Bottom of the deck is Temperance. There we see the alchemical symbol for fire while the crow is pouring water. We also see like the wings on the chest of the crow. So it's like the wings are emanating out of the heart space more evidently than like out of the back. There's also like these daffodils. I think these are daffodils. Yeah, I'm pretty sure those are daffodils. And it looks like there are two waterfalls in the back. So, like, this is the crow and these are the lines. It's almost like a waterfall energy. The two cards we get, it's the King of Wands and the World. See, here is our complete laurel wreath that I was talking about the last time. We also have these two infinity signs and then the lion. The lion, the infinity signs, the crown is on both of these. Last time we saw these four, they were on the Wheel of Fortune. Now they're on the World. I think this one came out first. Let's see what's coming off of the bottom. What was that? Spring and New Beginnings. So New Beginnings, I sort of, it feels like we almost have a say in a way because of the King of Wands. Nine of Pentacles with Geffen. Five and four. I don't know what phrase numbers are. And then the Nine of Cups. Nine of Pentacles, Nine of Cups. Did I do that right? Yeah, that looks close enough, right? Yeah. Bottom of the deck over here is the Five of Cups. This Five of Cups is interesting. Three cups are upright, two are spilled. It looks like she tipped that cup over. So maybe this is disappointment. Also, she's looking like the corpse bride, question mark, half skeleton, half alive. Honestly, she could be hell, question mark. This could be hell because of the little souls in the cups. Hey Sandra, Merry Christmas. I actually ordered myself this a while ago, my little snoozy. But I just opened it today. So I was like, oh, this is my Christmas gift to me. And it's got little aliens on it. And like Saturn and stuff. And I was like, oh, now it makes me feel like my earrings are little UFOs, little spaceships. See? Like a little spaceship because of the aliens and Saturn. Can you see the aliens? Yeah, there's the aliens. I was like, oh, aliens for Christmas. Awesome. I guess. Aliens, candy cane hearts, and Saturn, because why not? Oh, let me change this back as well. Nine of Cups, Nine of Pentacles. So this Nine of Pentacles is also a card in question here lately because of the whole berserker trend, the change in relationship of the person and the power animal, totem animal, the shift of that berserker nature. But it feels like because Geffen is like new ground, claiming new ground, it almost feels like, for some reason, it feels like a space that spirit. It's not that spirit can't enter this space. It's almost like it's a new spiritual frontier. It's a new space for humanity, for people to decide what they want to do with it in. It's almost like, and I caught a bit of Russ's live when we're talking about like, or when he talked about like creating new traditions. It's almost like we're creating new rituals and new traditions and stuff like that because that's been another energy. It's like how ritual can limit us, and we're coming into this unlimited state. It's about setting a precedent, I guess, as far as like what we do with this energy or how we interact in this energy. And it feels like it's one that again we haven't necessarily been in, at least as a collective yet. So we're going to be setting the precedent. And so because of that, it almost feels like spirit might not tell us like what to do with it, or they might not tell us what to do in it. Spirit just has to hope that we'll like do the right thing when we get there, if that makes any sense. And that's why, like, man, I think that explains this kind of weird energy between the world and the King of Wands, because it's like where it was a new world, but it was like one that we participate in the creation of. And I mean, that's like literally the world, right? Although the world that we live in, it's like when we're born, it's already here. So we can participate in the somewhat in the direction that things go, but we don't necessarily participate in the creation of the world. But by participating in the direction that things go in, we are technically participating in the creation of the world because it changes. This is interesting. The sacral is it's reading like the seed of dreams. It's associated with creativity. So it's like it's the space where all of that surfaces within a person before any action is taken or anything in the solar plexus or whatever. It's the seed of dreams. The SEAT and the SEED in a way. And then we have the sun here, which is life force and sigil. It's also interesting to note how almost similar these two runes are between the U sacral, AO, and sigil, the sun. But it's like it's a brand new world. What are you going to do with it? It's a brand new life. How are you going to live it? This Capricorn season is so interesting. And I've been saying like it feels like winter is feeling like spring. Spring is and new beginnings is literally right here with Frey. But it's like this new season is a whole new world. I kind of want to keep this short today. I am going to keep this short today because I just did like those other four. But I almost want to put something across it. I'm going to build a rune across this. I can't think of one. Am I going to build the rune in runes? No, I'm going to build the rune how to build this. I'm thinking of going for win. Yeah, because of the Nine of Cups here. I just got to remember how it's built. Two. That's perfect because one goes below, one goes above. This is not enough space to build it how I want, but that's fine. Who was left on? We had two rooms left on the table. The lovers, of course. I think Win is the one. I'm trying to remember if it's like this or if it's like this. That's Needle. There's that Wheel of Fortune. See, we see the same four animals on the Wheel of Fortune as we do on the world. It's all the fixed signs. I guess it is all about Saturn right now, apparently. What? Saturn on Rio Koruk? No way. Groundbreaking, revolutionary, unheard of. That is two cards. Only one at one. So there we go. We build a win cross-secting, and the magician is at the bottom of the deck. This magician is pointing up, and the rune coming out of his finger is mankind. You see it? There it is. This is the not twisted magician that we saw last time. There's also the rooster on his shoulder that's giving me cock-a-doodle doo. That's giving me like on the farmhouse at like 5 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock in the morning. It's signaling a new day. The sun is rising. It's that dawn. What is it? An old earth passed away. It's one of the Disology cards. I haven't used those in a minute. I keep looking at this camera, but this camera is looking at the table. I haven't used the Disology cards in a hot second. But it is dawn before the first day an old earth passed away and something else. We have the King of Wands again with the Seven of Wands. So this is almost a weirdness, that bind rune. But the base of it is Athel or Athel. And that is the legacy, the birthright, right? Let's see if it'll focus. That's the legacy birthright. But it has a gift in the middle of the legacy of the birthright is this gift. That's the gift of the Earth Mason being returned at the end of the last life, which is again very much sort of like this energy, I guess. It's interesting to see the King of Wands come out twice, but this time he's with the Seven of Wands, and with this being the Seven of Wands, I think it's maybe it's not a bind rune. It's Vindhorn though. That magician is casting with a Vindhorn, which is unbound. It's interesting because on the other channel, Vindhorn came out with that. It was almost like it was that like the birthright returned, but it was Vindhorn and Feo, I think. It was this unbound, limitless abundance. And again, like with the Nine of Pentacles, Nine of Cups, we have the potential to create that. We have the potential to set that as the precedence for this new space, for this new thing that we're flowing into. We have the opportunity to actually create something beautiful almost from the jump if we can learn from our past and not do the same things to create the same disparities to ultimately lead us to the point where we're at now. You know what I mean? The runic anchor for win is Leaf Shade. Leaf Shade was the thing that revealed the Ganunga Gap Void. Cradled neath the comforting branches of trees that stretching, providing peace, shelter, wisdom, and direction. Contemplate the rate at which a tree breathes and lives. Join its calming pace by allowing nature's healing to kiss us all deep inside. Healing herbs and tinctures are shared with us by plant spirits whispering on a sultry breeze under their sacred shaded foliage. Number 48. That's the energy of like the world. That's the energy of Earth. That's the energy of the planet. The lovers, it's feeling like some kind of, it's like an obvious symbiosis. On the ends of the poles, we have Thor, strength, fertility, and protection. Libra just got Thor. And I was going to bring up Libra because a big part of Libra's message was us seeing, or Libra seeing how they play a part and getting them where they are in life. And it was like whether good or bad. If you're in a good spot in life, then you seeing how you contributed to that might be like little manifestation sort of tips and tricks for you personally that work to get you there. Maybe it's a way that you held yourself accountable. Maybe it's a way in which you refrained from doing something. Maybe you were just like extra brave and your bravery was rewarded with you being in a good spot in life. And that's the things that are for you to keep in mind so you can continue to be there or be in that energy. And if you're ever shifted out of it, it's like you know how to get yourself back there rather than like what works for everybody else. On the not so great side, it's like if you're in a not great spot in life, you seeing how you contributed to being there might help you avoid ending up in that position in the future. Like, let's say that your money spending habits are really bad, and that's how you end up in a state of not having as much money as you want. So then it's like you realize that might help you in a case or situation or scenario where you come into a windfall of abundance later. But if your money spending habits don't change, then you might burn through all of that money that you get and end up in the exact same position later. And then it's like, that's why it's like it's important for us to see how we navigate ourselves, our part. It's important for Libra to see its part, for us to see our part in navigating ourselves to where we are in life so that we can have a little bit more of an active, conscious choice in whether or not we end up in a similar position. That's why I was going to talk about it. And Libra got Thor. On the other side of this is Gandalf, which is wisdom. I love it because that was another part of Libra's reading. It was how Odin was obsessed with Ragnarok. So all of the information, all of the knowledge that Odin gained, it was processed through that lens of like, how does this help me avoid Ragnarok? How does this help me win Ragnarok? How does this lessen the damage of Ragnarok? And so it's like because everything was so already coded towards Ragnarok, it became very easy for him to be like selective. It's like a case of selective hearing or cherry picking sort of information and disregarding other things. But I love that the wisdom is here because it feels like the wisdom of Gandalf will tell us how we like it's almost like the wisdom of Gandalf will tell us when to not interfere, or the wisdom of Gandalf will help us know when to just let something flow. Because sometimes in trying to prevent something, we cause it instead. I think Gandalf, it helps us, like, again, when we see how we contribute, it helps us turn that into wisdom. I think another part of the wisdom of Gandalf is knowing that when we share a planet, when we share an environment, what affects one affects all. And so it's like we can, just as we can be hot blind within our own lives, we can be hot blind to like each other. And I say that again because we have the King of Wands, the Seven of Wands, but also the Lovers. So as much as the runic tarot is like the King of Wands manifesting, I don't know why I did it there. As much as this is like the King of Wands manifesting what it is that they want in their life, again, the Magician is at the bottom of the deck, but off of that comes mankind. So this is mankind. The Hermit is behind the Magician, and the Three of Wands is behind the Hermit. This is like old Odin. This is like when Odin was consumed by the fear of Ragnarok and how it warped everything. Um, but it's like this is a mankind not only because this is spirit putting us in a position to further participate in co-creating our life world reality experience, but it's also like us being mindful that we are one of many people, one person out of many peoples, and that it's about the whole as well. So if we are the micro and all of humanity is the macro, it's having a balance between that. And I think again, like that's what the Lovers is bringing into this situation that we didn't necessarily have before. But we have plenty of years of history to tell us that neglecting one, it doesn't help. It hurts us all. And this is the rune of bliss, or was supposed to be in the shape of bliss. So gorgeous. It's really interesting. I mean, I guess like that's what for every time I've heard somebody talk about being sovereign and co-creating and stuff like that, like it feels like this is the answer to that. But it also feels like, or maybe it's just my biased opinion and perspective. There's Thor in the giant portal. That spirit isn't necessarily going to grant us that just for us to recreate the history that we've already had on this planet. You know what I mean? Because then it's like, well, what's the point? That's not a change. That's just, I don't know. Let's do what we did in the age of Pisces, but in the age of Aquarius too. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe. I'm going to keep all these face down because they came out face down. But there's our sun chariot again. And this is very similar to, oh, look, and then there's the Wackin. Those are the animal watchers and guides. This is the energy that they're trying to put us in right now, rather than being in that old berserker energy. Bottom of the deck is the Five of Wands. These two came out together. It was the Five of Wands, the Hanged Man, and then the Sun at the bottom of the deck. And this was that like super primal thing within us that is like begging to like get out. But it's like it's going to this energy. This is her before she bursts free. So because of that, I have to look for. I'm gonna look for. No, I won't. I won't look for at Burston. I was gonna look for at Burston. I know it's number 55, but I literally just saw it in the video where the personal Idrisil tree was blooming. So this is the kin within her met with the kin from the universe, from the divine. That's the lover's marriage of it. And then she becomes that sun chariot. Leo, I pulled for Leo soul. Um, like like I didn't get the card, but I was like it came to me first, and then I mentioned it in the throughout Leo's reading. And Leo's reading was like interesting, Virgo and Leo. But it was that Virgo actually got the chariot, and it was like the ignition of the divine spark within Virgo is met in the world. It's like the world awakens to the fact that Virgo has awakened to themselves. And then Leo's was along a similar ish vein, but kind of different anyway. Like, I don't, it just feels like we have the opportunity, but see, I think another way I could read this, take it as it resonates always, use your discernment always, use your intuition always. But it almost feels like, too, like it's just like there's no room for ego. There's no room for an ego that is so grand or an ego that is so selfish that it will put the rest of the world at jeopardy, that it will inconvenience or harm the rest of the village. There's no room for selfishness. We did selfishness. And it feels like that's why this is tied up. Because of that, it feels like a trial by fire or a purification by fire of the ego because of the east, because of the eye above her head. And this is what the ego is reborn as. All parts in alignment with chariot energy. If anything isn't, it can throw the whole thing off. I'm like, where's my box? Where the box at? I feel like I just heard my little brother laugh, but he's not here. I wonder if my mom is like FaceTiming him. We'll go for this next. Look at the colors on these two. Very similar. Very similar. This makes me think of, because of all these greens and with the hermit at the bottom of the deck, it makes me think of that second portal or that second interface. That's the wellspring. Makes sense for this. Um, where it's like, as above, so below, as within, so without. So a lot of spiritual practice seems to be about changing the within so that the without will eventually reflect that change. It's like if you want abundance and stuff like that, sit in the energy of it, clean up your internal. Because then when your internal is saying abundance, it'll radiate outwards, and then your external will also mirror that abundance to you. But it feels like there's this like right behind the eyes interface between the internal and external. But there's a second interface. It's like when we go so far inside that we hit the outside again. And it was like it's easier, quicker, the effects are much deeper if we go to that second interface and try to operate there rather than to like just go within and then try to do stuff from the surface. It's like internal, but it's like surface level internal, right? It's that like, oh, I did a little bit, like, oh, I changed my diet, Oh, look, there's the sun again. Y'all see it? It's like, oh, like I'm eating vegan and I'm going to yoga and I have my crystals and I'm saying my affirmations 10 times a day. And it's like, yes, all of that stuff, it's great. It's amazing. It's wonderful, I'm sure. But at the same time, it's almost like there has to be something deeper than that. Something within the self should truly shift and change deep within the self a lot of times. And again, it's like from that place, from that space, it allows our internal light to shine outwards less clouded. I almost wanted to say corrupted, but it's more like cloudy, right? You got to wipe off the lens, or you got to wipe off the plastic so that the light can shine through. If it's like a lighthouse, you got to wipe the glass, clean the glass, because it doesn't matter if you get a new light bulb. It doesn't matter how bright the light is. If the glass is super foggy, then you're gonna lose lumens. You're gonna lose illumination. So it's like, clean the glass. Crow Tarot. I remember when I used to be semi-intimidated by you because you gave such messages. Page of Cups, bottom of the deck is the Tower. And then Death is behind the Tower. Death is a card that I see often in this Crow Tarot lately. Y'all hear my mom? This tower, it feels like all of the crows made a home in the top part of the tower. It's like it needs to be cleaned or something. Like something needs to happen within the tower, but there are too many crows to do anything. Something has to happen to get the crows to scatter, to get the crows to clear out long enough for the tower to be cleaned, for it to be mechanically worked on, for whatever that needs to happen to the tower to happen to the tower. Hey, Holly. I am. Well, I only got 4 left. I was like, because I felt like going live earlier, but then I was like, eh. And it's been on my mind to at least do a few more signs. So I was like, oh, I'll do them. So, Merry Christmas. So all of the crows need to be chased away from the tower in order for something to happen. While this crow is away, they come upon this cup. This golden cup that it feels like it's made out of the same thing that the tower is made out of, or it feels like there's some resonance between the cup and the tower here. I don't know if it's like there's something for the crows to discover while they're outside that they then bring back. It's very like the village archetype and the wild unknown archetypes. Where it's like when you come of age, you leave the village, but at a certain point you return to the village with your knowledge of everything that you experienced while you were out there. And that's how the village grows. The village grows because of all of those who leave and then come back with something. And it's reading kind of Bifrost, kind of Journey Home. Because it's, like we're birthed from spirit and we return to spirit. But in the meantime, there's something for us to gather, gain, learn on earth. Question mark. Was the tower at the bottom? I think it was. Yeah, and then death is behind that. But death, it feels like while we're asleep, we can retrieve something. I don't know. I have no clue. Or maybe that's the crow that didn't leave the tower. So maybe it's like you're going to be forced out of the tower one way or another, almost in a way. Um, so that came up when I was reading the go left, go left, go left. It's like, if you turn left early and by some chance you make it through the dark forest before it is your time, you're going to be sitting at a crater for a long time because something is being built. So until that thing is finished, go right, go straight, go any other direction, learn whatever it is for you to learn, gain whatever it is for you to gain, so that by the time spirit lets you know, okay, you can turn left now, there will be something after the forest. It'll be worth it. It will feel worth it to us because, would it feel worth it if we do all that and then there's nothing there? It would be kind of pointless. And I don't know I personally don't know how pointless it feels like, as humans, a lot of times we might be like, oh, this spiritual journey is pointless because I still don't have $1 million and he still doesn't love me and she still hasn't come back yet. So what's it all for? And at the end of the day, sometimes it has to be for you. You know, I keep looking at this camera like it's looking back at me. That camera is not looking back at me. But it makes me think. I had a friend who was dating somebody, and he was like, oh, I changed this for you and I changed that for you because that was our agreement that we would change. We would be better for each other. And she was like, yeah, but at some point you should want to be better just for yourself. You know? Ooh, well, hell. Well, hell. There she is. 1L, ruler of fears, daughter of Loki, supposedly. Bottom, daughter of Loki, bottom of the deck. Hell and her father. Come hell and her father. What y'all talking about? I feel like that's almost like a unlucky lot in life. An unlow-key lot. It's like he was persecuted or forced into situations for some reason, and then his children were right along with them, and neither he nor they had any control over any of it. And again, it's just like how not great Odin was when he was consumed by the fear of Ragnarok. Ruler of fears, right there. But it's almost like in the grand scheme of things, Hyde kills Baldur, Baldur goes to hell. They try to get Baldur out of hell. Hell says no, he's not leaving. After Ragnarok, the light is returned. So it's almost like in some way she used Odin's fear against him. But it's not hard to do when someone is so enraptured by and with fear. It's all the fear mongering, whatever that people tell you about. It's easy to manipulate someone who's afraid because you can just use their fear against them. And as people, we fear many things, and there are some things that we fear more or less than others. Um, but when we work through our fears, or when we can face our fears, we become less easy to manipulate in that way. But again, it feels like it feels like there's a totality in that. Because it's like, let's say that you're afraid of apples and you're afraid of worms. And some apples have worms in them because, worms got to eat too. And so it's like someone knows that you're more afraid of worms than apples, but they know that you're afraid of both worms and apples. And they want you to go for the apple, but they know that since you're afraid of the apple, they won't go for it. But it's like they'll use your fear of worms to get you to go for the apple, even though you're afraid of the apple. I feel like I'm not communicating this metaphor effectively, but it's like because fear is a spectrum, we can be, again, it feels like easily manipulated. And we're going to be afraid of the things that we're afraid of, sure. But I also don't think the world necessarily cultivates bravery in us. I also don't think human nature necessarily at this point cultivates bravery because it's more about complacency and comfort. And if you can make somebody comfortable, then I don't know. It gets weird, okay? That's it. It gets weird. But where the fear is too great, light cannot exist. Or if it does, it's accompanied with a lot of shadow. Oh my gosh, it was hell. The Five of Cups. I was like, oh my gosh, it's hell. Because the little souls in the cups. And she was like pushing them over. I see she's inherited her father's trickery and strategy, unless it was his plan to begin with. That's why you got to be careful. I don't know. Just your intuition, your discernment will help. And when we can differentiate that from fear, from paranoia, from patterning, from everything that ever happened to us ever, it will guide us in how we need to go. And sometimes it will lead us directly to a fear. Again, because in that time, it may be our time to conquer it so that we can see beyond the illusion of it, so that we can discern truth, and so that we can know when our fears are being used against us. Flissa, flow. Bottom of the deck is Treadle. Treadle was at the bottom of the deck, I'm pretty sure, when I picked him up. Oh, Flissa for me is a question. Flissa for me is self-initiation. And I guess right now, I don't know if it's still applying where initiation is reading as induction. Because the King of Wands came out twice with the World, Seven of Wands, the Lovers, and because of all of the energy that came out today, it's again reading more induction. We're being welcomed into a space rather than put through a trial or whatever. You know what I mean? And I guess it's like through the lens of fear, or with fear carrying forward the message of not necessarily fear. This is things that we do, again, going off of that Libra, how we lead ourselves to where we are in life, or our part in it, because it's not necessarily always 100% us. You know what I mean? It's like we're walking up to this portal, to this opportunity for a self induction of Flursa. This is the portal. There's an individual or an event or something that stands in front of that portal. And it's like it's this question here of, do we continue moving forward through it, or do we backtrack? Do we retrace our steps? Or do we stop? Because Flursa for me, it's that like it's self-initiated because it's a question of like, it's almost like, do you need anything from me? And if you say no, I'm like, okay. Even if I know that you need something, I am respecting your authority. I am respecting your sovereignty. I am respecting your autonomy. So even though I know you need something, even though we both know you need it, honestly, if I ask you and you say no, then I'm going to respect your no. And then you're going to move on about your life. You're going to move on about your day, and life will happen. Maybe you'll say, yeah, actually, I could use da 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 da. Like, oh my gosh, like I have it right here because I knew you would need it. It's right here. All you have to do is ask for it. Here you go. And then you step through the portal and then you go about your day. You go about your life. Either way, you're going to go about your day. Either way, you're going to go about your life. It's whether or not we ask for it. It seems like a lot of times when Flösa comes out, it's not necessarily something that's easy to ask for. Otherwise, it's like it would just be a portal. You know what I mean? Otherwise, it would be like, I don't know, Gips or the Gununga Gap or something like that. You know what I mean? It wouldn't even be Thorn. It would be Wind. I don't know. I think, too, if this is about us, or if part of this is us realizing, recognizing how we navigate ourselves to where we are in life, maybe with truer hindsight, we can see some of the things that we need along the way so that we know what to integrate, we know what attributes to exhibit, we know what help to ask for, we know what connections to network with or what network connections we have to utilize to ensure that wherever we fall short, we will be like we'll have that assistance. And that'll make navigating through this also easier and possible. But just like that Five of Wands, it's like it's another ego hit. It can be another ego hit if your ego doesn't like to ask for help or admit when you don't know what's going on or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be an ego hit if you're just like, yeah, I don't know something. I'm human. I'm not expected to know everything. I'm not expected to be able to do everything. That's why other people exist. Someone else can fill the gap that I can't fill. That's not for me to fill. And I don't have to belittle myself. I don't have to feel some type of way. I don't have to feel dumb or stupid because I can't do everything. So yeah, actually, I need some help. Hey, can you help me with this? I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah. I was literally just looking for like this is when synchronicity starts to happen. This is where pathways start to align. It's like, oh yeah, I was like literally heading in the same direction. But I'm not that great at flipping pancakes. I can't make the perfect pancake. And maybe you're the Leo that's like, oh my gosh. All my life, people have told me that I'm great at flipping pancakes, even though it's just flipping a pancake. I don't know what there is to be good about it with, but apparently I am. So I can do that. Apparently, I've been doing it all my life. Didn't even know. It's like, oh my gosh, I've been looking for this all my life. And then boom, that soul family, you met somebody. It's like, oh, it's like blah, 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 whatever. But it requires a level of honesty. It requires a level of vulnerability. It requires a level of humility, I guess, sometimes to do that. And Fluissa, it reads as very like, if you don't say you need it, if you don't say you want it to change, it'll let it be. It's not going to force anything. And again, that's why it's like it's self initiated, self induced, whatever, because it only happens when the self initiates it. So, and who had that? Somebody had that today where it's like, don't be afraid to be a little vulnerable. It was Scorpio. Well, it was like Scorpio was in an environment where vulnerability was preyed upon and seen as a weakness at some point. But the environment has changed. So Scorpio doesn't have to withhold all of that vulnerability anymore. So that is what it was for Scorpio. But again, it's all very like, especially when it comes to something like that, use your intuition, use your discernment, use your guidance. They're general. Everything I do on this channel is general. It may not fit your situation 100%. It might fit your situation negative 100%. You may be like, this is the complete opposite. Maybe that opposition will help you in some way. Maybe it doesn't. If it doesn't, don't take it. Don't force it to fit if it don't. Because at the end of the day, it's not going to help you. It's not going to serve you Why put yourself on a path that's not yours to take? You know what I mean? Anyway, but the energy itself, it was like, okay, girls, like y'all said 5D, y'all said New Earth 2.0, y'all said this, y'all said that. Now that the energetic slate is clean, what are you building? What are you making? What precedent are you setting? Are you going to recreate the life and world that you already just had? Or are you going to not? The way that the cards came out, it's very not. The Nine of Pentacles it came out with the Nine of Cups. The King of Wands came out with the Seven of Wands, but that was also coming with the Lovers. So it was very like, we all thrive, we all flourish. Because I don't prioritize myself so much that I operate at the expense of others. You know what I mean? Now, at the same time, if you're talking about Patrick is like, there's somebody for everybody. And at this point, I'm not interested in being for anybody. If I'm not for you, I'm not for you. If you're not for me, you're not for me. That's fine. I am moving on with my life towards what is for me, who is for me, and who I am for and what I am for. I lived too much of my life. Well, technically, I didn't live too much of my life. That now I'm like, I'm ready to live my life and like actually live my life. I worked through too many fear, went through too many fears, went through too many towers. I did it. And if I can be of help, if I can be of service, if I can be of assistance, that's great. Honestly, right now, it's not my priority. I do these often enough. I come live when I'm guided. Sometimes something might nag on me a little bit. And when it does, more often than not, I say something. But honestly, like I said, I'm interested in living my life right now. So if something transpires within the next few days, within the next week, within the next few months, and y'all don't see me, assume that I'm living my best life. Know that I still love you. Know that I still wish the best for you. But there are going to be other people here. You know what I mean? I honestly feel like, was it a few months ago now? I think it was somewhere in Scorpio season. Maybe like the second week of Scorpio season. Like, I feel like I've said everything I can say. I still feel that way. It's like if something comes up energetically, or if there's something like happening, like I can talk about it. But I feel like ultimately it's just going to lead me to say something that I've already said. Especially since now at this point it's very like it's always been use your intuition, guidance, and discernment. But it's like more than ever. I think there is still like power in community, and it's still nice to like, communicate and contribute and do whatever. But I don't know, when it comes to a lot of conversations, I kind of sort of for a little bit, I've been feeling like I don't really have anything to add. And if I don't feel like I have anything to add, and if spirit ain't telling me you need to do whatever, I'm not going to necessarily contribute. If I'm pulling cards and it comes up, then like, yeah, but I don't know. So, not saying I am necessarily going somewhere, but let me pull one of these Wild Unknown Alchemy cards. I haven't used them in a while. And I don't know, it's also like in my own personal journey, being where I am now, or at least where I have been for the past few months, there have been people that I've come across in my journey who, at the time that I reached out to them, they met me where I was ready to meet myself. But as I've continued along my journey, as I've continued to grow, and as I've continued to allow to unfold whatever is unfolding within me and for me, there are parts where it's like my truth is directly opposing what someone else has told me or what someone else said. And again, it's like it's not until I reach the point within myself that I was like, you know what, this feels resonant to me. And I keep seeing this. Spirit hasn't misled me yet to this point. So my throat get all like smoky all of a sudden. Ooh, the fumes from the cave are starting to get to me. Somebody get me out of Delphi. I'm kidding. I have been drinking way too much like Pepsi. My hour is over. No. No. I have literally like 21 seconds. No, not even. I have 11 seconds left. Oh, yeah, it has been an hour. Hold up. I haven't even been drinking enough water. Excuse me. To offset all of these soft drinks I've been drinking. But I've started within the past few days. Excuse me. But it wasn't until like I continued to follow what I knew was right and true for me that I got that validation and confirmation. I say it's validation and confirmation, but in reality, it was already being validated and confirmed before. I just wasn't ready to accept it or to believe it. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it's wild to me how it's like if I would have continued to listen or if I would have continued to abide by something that I knew wasn't me in resonance, like I wouldn't be here in a lot of ways. So I could always use the thing I loved about using the Diablo tarot and having the angel tarot and the occult tarot is that like every time I used it, there were no external factors, there were no external forces. It was like it's a you thing, it's a me thing, it's an us thing. And it's time for us to have a little bit more advocacy, self advocacy when it comes to life, when it comes to living life, and to not be so. It's not necessarily being dependent on spirit, it's more so being dependent on like other people to speak on behalf of spirit for us. And it's because of my journey that I also recognize that like if you bring something to me that doesn't align with my truth, even if it is your truth, sometimes I feel like I'm decent, not great all the time. Sometimes in some limited situations and scenarios, I'm decent at picking up on how something can be true for somebody else, even if it's not true for me. And it throws me sometimes, especially if I'm doing something general. It's like, I don't necessarily personally agree with this, but this is what the energy is telling me. So it's what I'm going to say. You often hear me probably interjecting my own, like, this is what it's reading like, but like, if da 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 da. But also, like I said, I'm like, this is what it's saying. I got to say what it's saying, even though it ain't my truth. Um, but it's because of that I can allow other people to live in their truths, and I think there are some things that are for us to sort of like unfold. So that's why whenever I get a title card, I respect it. If I'm reading for somebody, especially back in the day when I would use the SKT more, and the Queen of Cups would come out. She's the the ivory shield. She sits as the guardian gatekeeper to those watery realms. Sometimes when she would come out, she would glare at me and be like, this is a sacred space for that person. And I'm like, you know what? The Queen of Cups is here. I can literally feel her glaring darts at me through ink and paper. Whatever's beyond this is for you. I can't proceed anymore. I can try to fill out and try to help you lead yourself there. But ultimately, this is something within you that you have to discover on your own. And I also have to, like, when I see a high priestess as well, it's like I have to respect when my own bias, when my own truth, when my own lenses and filters and perceptions may cause me to discolor something. Because I know for sure when I see somebody else say something, I'm like, that don't resonate for me. That is counter my truth. But again, like I can also accept that I am me and they are them. And the collective is the collective. You are you. And you don't have to fit my mold. But that's the beautiful thing about humanity and us all being here, especially with there being so many of us. Altogether, we encompass greater than we can as individuals. So please don't believe what I believe just because I believe it, especially if it don't resonate for you. Walk in your own truth. Open up those realms. And if you feel so guided or encouraged, share. So that other people know that there's a different way, that there's a different perspective, that there's another truth. Because that one may resonate or align a little bit more to theirs in its truth and honesty than anything that they've encountered to that point, especially if they're in a space of learning to accept their truth. And trust me, I've been there. I probably spend too much time there, but I don't like run away from it anymore. I just kind of be like, okay, well, this is going to unfold when it unfolds. And until then, I'm going to keep watching anime, playing video games, or living my life. And then one day it's like, knock, knock, here I am. And I'm like, okay, come on in. All right, we're ready. But it's also my belief that spirit knows me just like my mother knows me, just like my close friends know me, just like you may think you know me. And so, you know, I don't think spirit, it is my truth that spirit doesn't expect perfection from me. But it is also my truth that I am perfect. I am always perfect because all that is asked of me, all that is required of me is for me to be me. I'm not asked to be anything more. I'm not asked to be anything less. So as long as I'm being me, I'm perfect. And again, for those who that works for, it will work, Henny. For those that it don't, it won't. I don't know. There's me sharing, I guess. Merry Christmas. That's your gift from me. In addition to all my time that y'all get for free. I'm just kidding. All right. Wild Unknown Alchemy. Where do we sit? Where sit we? I kind of want to just pull one. I'll pull three. I'll do a samurai cut. That actually came to my mind the other day. That back when she was Miss Remy Healings, it was the samurai cut. It was a mandala. It was turning the impossible into that other second word always escapes me. Inevitable. Turning the impossible into the inevitable. From something that could never happen to something that has no choice but to happen. That's what happens when we understand justice. Major arcana justice. When we enter the territory of the magician. Because we have that understanding of cosmic law or whatever. So. All right. So the first one we have. Oh, you can still see shards of light, sparks of light, skin to lie. She always comes out. Back when I first got this deck, she would come out all the time. I'm a spark. You a spark. Everybody got a spark. And Virgo was about Virgo and Leo in some way. I mean, very much Leo, but it feels like they read different. But those were about that. And like energy recognizes energy. When you are operating from that spark, the world around you, the universe, God, spirit, people know. And it's met. This has been a big energy lately with all of the earth grab that was being held, all of the Aethel, the birthright, but then the gifts with earth grab, the earth mason. It's like, oh, now you're in your earthly power because your spark is on. You're no longer operating from trauma. You're no longer trying to run from something or desperately trying to get towards something else. You can see fully clearly now in the moment because your perception isn't clouded by what you want or what you don't want. You can see fully. The light returns to the eyes after Ragnarok. But before Ragnarok, we couldn't see how we contributed to making it be, you know? Odin's like, oh, the giants are doing this and they're doing that, and everybody else is doing all this other stuff. And it's like, okay, Odin, but what are you doing to contribute to Ragnarok? How is this kind of sort of almost literally entirely all your fault? And you could have just been like, you know what? Let's bury the hatchet. I'm sorry. But no, you just keep going and going and going. And that's what the Two of Swords, that's what that bottom row eventually was. That's why the Nine of Wands or the Nine of Pentacles was originally like, we stray so far from spirit, desperately trying to make something happen in the physical, that it becomes this whole thing that we didn't like, we don't even know how we got here. And it's like, yeah, girl, but like if you would have listened, like not only could we have helped you avoid this, but we could have given you the thing that you actually wanted. But we learn, we grow, we mature, we evolve. Paths are paths, journeys are journeys. I've made my mistakes in life. Oh, Venus, this golden Venusian energy. Wait, is this 66? XL? No, that's 46. This is 46 and 4. But I say, oh, because like this, see that? That's Venus. The gold is in her palm. This is some new seed. Who got a seed? The seed of the soul, that sacral you energy. Veneris, Venus. Love it. Love and light. God is all of it. There it is right there. Venus, love, scintillate, sparks of light. When they congregate, coagulate, come together, constellations, stars, galaxies, universes are born. See, there's some kind of new world energy. I don't know. It's very much here today. It very much came out around the sacral. But it reads as so interesting. Because it's like, it's for us to decide what we do with it. And I guess the thing that's the most interesting is that, like, I know there's a lot of like, some people are going to ascend into the 5D and some people are going to stay in the 3D, and the 3D Earth is going to pass away and the 5D Earth is going to be amazing. But it's like, you know, what if we all go to this 5D new Earth and some of us just continue to live the lives that we've always lived? Some of us carry forward, bring into the 5D everything we try to escape from in the 3D. Some of us consciously bring the things into the 5D from the 3D because, you know, whatever. And then like things happen, you know? It's like, what if we're already there? And maybe everything that's been happening is to keep us sort of stuck and in the same mindset that we were in before. But as long as you're right, then I guess that's what's important, right? That's why I have a humbling kink. That's why I have a humility kink. Like, I love to be told that I'm wrong. I mean, as a person, I don't love it, but as a person, I love it. Because I like learning, I like growing, I like healing, I like maturing, I like evolving. My descendant is in Scorpio, so I'm astrologically coded to love transformation because it makes me feel like I'm growing. I used to hate feeling like I was stagnant. And then I lived a life of stagnancy. And I hated so much of it. It would explain my depression. Oh, now we have ether, the void. Right under these sparks of light, we have the void. Look at that. Number 42. Everything is born from darkness. Everything returns to darkness. So to see darkness as evil is like interesting. Shadow, on the other hand, is different. You know what I mean? Bottom of the deck is 10. Stanum. 10 actually came out recently. It's piezoelectric. Yeah. And look at this. Under pressure, it emits light. Interesting. But it's almost like that's like a flint and tinder. When they strike each other, they emit light in the darkness. Something in the darkness that births light. Where the book at? I ain't using the book, I guess. Okay, that's these two over here. We get Spiritus Rector, benevolent guide. Exactly. Like this is where the animal spirits are going. This is where those totems are going. For us to be in that same old, like that whole berserk energy is like it's shifted, it's transformed, it's changed. There are modern berserkers who call upon spirit, embody spirit, ritualize spirit to force change in whatever kind of way. It's like I am using affirmations and the law of manifestation to make happen in my life what I want to happen. Girl, well, spirit knows, number one, how to get it to be. Spirit also knows, number two, whether or not you'd actually like that. I myself, like, there was this person. I'm gonna be real candid. I'm gonna be real honest with y'all. There was this person that I was like so infatuated with, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this person is like no one that I've ever been attracted to before. He totally was. But anyway, that didn't work out. He starts dating somebody else I know, and then it's like there's this whole side to his personality that I did not see. Pisces had rose tinted glasses on hardcore. Honestly, kind of, sort of, not in the totality of my life, but here recently, there's been a few people where I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so whatever. And then you kind of get to know them a little bit and you're like, ooh, okay, well, glad this didn't work out. That was protection. That rejection was very much so protection. But like, that's the thing, right? What if I would have manifested so hardcore that we ended up together or whatever, and then I had to discover that like in a relationship rather than like discovering it outside of a relationship? I'd rather learn about it this way than like being in it, you know what I mean? Spirit knows stuff like that, so that's why it's like we don't necessarily have to force so much all the time. And that's why it was like a else in reverse somewhere, and it was like, excuse me, God, spirit, the universe tries to keep us out of those situations. That is our protection. But once we force our way into it, or once we get into it, there's a certain amount of that protection that we forfeit. Because now we don't get to discover Page of Swords from afar. We have to like be in it. Right? It's like being in the eye of the tower is worse than being in the eye of the storm. Because if you look at the tower card, more often than not, the only thing that gets struck in the tower is the tower. The eye is the only place where all that stuff is happening. And then you might get some debris. But with the hurricane, with the storm, it's different because that's like the eye is the only place of calm and then it swirls around it. So you're actually being placed in the eye when you're not being placed in the eye. You know what I mean? Like the tower letter I. Anyway, I was blown away when I found out. I could not believe it. But then like some of the things that I heard about, some of the things that like were shared with me from that person, I'm like, oh, okay, now this kind of makes sense, but it makes sense in a way where like you're not necessarily the victim in this situation. You kind of sort of caused this. And now I see that. And I'm glad it's not mine. Thank you. This is 57, a lot of 40s and 50s. So yeah, the animal spirits, the guides, like they're pulling us in the direction that is for us to go. Sometimes we can step out and like, you know what? I did that. Hence the mistake. I was like, I am going to 10 of Wands my own journey. Did I learn things? Yes. Am I in a position in my life right now where I can appreciate those things? 100%, 1000%, very, very, very much so. Did I have to do it? No, I don't believe I had to do it. I think I could have been grateful and appreciative. I think there are things that I could have learned, maybe not so like firsthand, maybe not so viscerally, by just acknowledging, honoring, and accepting how life was unfolding rather than being like, I'm going to 10 of wands my journey and I'm going to keep on trying. Ooh, you live and you learn, right? But again, like this is that new guy. This is that new. Thank you for coming out. Who's at the bottom? Unus Mundus, synchronicity. Synchronicity with this. Look, more animals. 2 snakes. Is it more than 2 snakes? 4 snakes. This is a snake, and this is a snake, and this is a snake, and this is a snake. Synchronicity feels like, with these like white and checkered snakes, almost like white and black snakes, it's this interconnectedness. It's this marriage of like knowing and unknowing. You know what I mean? And the subsequent trust that needs to exist for us to navigate the known and the unknown. The Niflheim fog and the Alfheim light. It's already 10:43. Oh my gosh. I wanted to eat some more food, but it's kind of late. The last card is Neptunus, Neptune. I love how piezoelectric this is. And it's this. But Neptune is like pressing something together into light. Neptune is your planet of illusion. It's your planet of delusion. It's your planet of nothing is real. Everything is fake. Don't trust anything. Don't do anything. That's literally all that Neptune has to offer you is lies and deception. Just like all that Saturn has to offer you is feeling constricted, restrained, like you can't do anything. Just like, I could go on and on and on. But again, it's like, it's how I don't know, with some of this stuff, we cheat ourselves. Who's at the bottom of the deck? Oh, 2. Am I going to pull both? Yeah, sure. Why not? Separation, separatio, and Chiron. But this Chiron being like the scissors can cut through this. This makes me think of a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. 1 gold, 2 golds. Neptune has no gold. Also, like, there's this like light beam coming out here. Light beam coming out of the fingers. These 2 beams coming out. $70 is separatio. 11 is Chiron. 9 is Neptune. So we have the IXXI in Neptune and Chiron. Oh, you can't see it. It feels like Neptune is literally creating pearls. Like it feels like, again, like Neptune it's this piezoelectric light born from darkness. It's like Neptune can take like antimatter and like compress it and then turn it into matter and release it. Literally dreams coming true, Neptune. A fantasy can be more than just something that we imagine. It can become our reality. It takes a lot of force to do it, though. I think that's one thing Neptune is. Even though, like, it doesn't feel like Neptune is pressing too hard, there's some more gold right there. Even though it feels like it's deceptively easy. Chiron and separation. Separatio. Maybe it's like it's the difference between It almost feels like Chiron, hurt, pain, trauma, whatever, causes us to create in the mental, in the etheric, in the astral, the solution to our problem. I think Neptune can remain delusion or it can remain fantasy when we don't know how to separate that from the etheric side and bring it into reality. It's almost like Chiron, like there's this tree in the astrals, in the ethereal. And these Chiron, and it doesn't have to always be as extreme as Chiron. It's very Abraham Hicks, knowing what you don't want, you know what you do want, and you create this rocket of desire and you send it into the void. And when that happens, there's this fruit that grows on the tree in the astral. This pressing of Neptune is separating the fruit from the tree. And when it falls to the ground, it precipitates into reality. But I think it's like when we don't cut the fruit, when we only populate the tree, and then the tree gets too heavy from all of the unloosened fruit, that Neptune can tend toward the toxic. But is that just a person's frustration at all of these dreams that they can dream but never live in reality? You know what I mean? Where does the human piece come into it? Like, is Saturn really the bad guy? Because Saturn's like, you got to show me that you're responsible. I'm not just going to give you a dog because a dog is a live animal. And if you don't take care of it, it might cease to exist. So you're going to have to prove to me that you can take care of this thing before I just give it to you. And it's like, oh my gosh, Saturn, you're so mean because you don't just give me what I want like Jupiter. Venus didn't make me do anything. She just gave it to me. But Neptune and Saturn are the bad guys. Okay. Anyway, Patrick, why are you like this? Because people are the way that they are. Because I feel like we really do have a tendency of like trying to see something or someone as bad just because it's not necessarily like an easy energy. Like it doesn't give us what we want when we want it all the time. Because it challenges us to grow and evolve and mature in a way. Because it prepares us to do more with more resources. Because the responsibility that it helps us gain is met with an increase in access. Because you don't let toddlers run around with blow torches and flamethrowers and lit sticks of dynamite. Like that, you're a bad parent because you don't let your child run around with dynamite. It's like, okay, well, sorry, I don't want my kid to blow up. You know, I don't know. That was extreme. It was unnecessary. I won't say it was uncalled for, but I could have come up with a different metaphor. But that's people. And then we project that onto spirit. We project it onto anything and everything. It's like, okay, yeah, sure. I'm the bad guy. Saturn's the bad guy. Neptune's the bad guy. Oh my gosh, look, spring. The tree bearing all the fruit. It's literally spring. This winter feels like spring. There's a white tree with fruit. This is an etheric, energetic tree. We're really good at making it grow fruit, but we're not as good as harvesting it. Is it Neptune's fault or is it ours? You know? Oh, well, here's the bare tree in winter. Here's the winter tree, no fruit. Sorry. Well, I'm not sorry. It's wintertime, you know? It's not the season for fruit. I'm sorry for what? I'm telling y'all, when I found out that Jupiter is Marduk in like Babylonian astrology or whatever, I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Makes so much sense. Funny that we're living in an age of instant gratification and Amazon culture where you can order something on Amazon Prime and get it a day or two later. I use Amazon Prime, but I also don't mind waiting. Because I think I've said it before, like, I think I said it on my chalk. It's because it's been my journey to have to wait, especially like getting a reading from someone that I respect as a reader. And when a reader that I respect is like, when I have to wait, I know it's for a reason. You know what I mean? And when I got that reading, it legit took like, I think it was over a year. But by the time I got it, it was very pertinent to where I was. And it was information that if I would have received it when I asked for it, I would not have been ready. And maybe that's because I can, in some ways, I'm not perfect. Besides me, like I'm perfectly me, you know what I mean? But also, y'all hear me talk about how I know I'm stubborn AF, but I still think I'm great. I still know I'm amazing. Is that my healed Chiron and Leo? Maybe. Am I full of myself? Maybe. Does it work for me? Absolutely. It works for me. Maybe not you. Maybe your Chiron isn't in Leo and you don't need to heal it. Maybe your South Node is in Leo and you need to actually be a little bit more Aquarian and a little less Leo. You know, I don't know you. I don't know your life. I don't know your chart. I don't know your journey. I don't know your destiny. I don't know the potentialities that you have to open up to and for yourself through your choice. I only know mine. There's that winter tree again with copper. I think we're looking for iron and not copper. Copper might be the reason why nothing is growing. I don't know. Anyway, I forget what I was saying. At this point, it's just been a semi nonsensical ramble, but it's fine. You don't gotta watch this part, or you can watch this part. You know what I mean? This is me and my truth. This is me and my honesty, and I'm not gonna apologize. I am so beyond the point of apologizing. Like I said, so anyway, spirit works with me because we both know me. And spirit can roll their eyes all they want to. Eventually, I come around. I roll my own eyes at me. Sometimes I'll be like, "Why am I like this?" I have reached the point where I do more than just ask myself why I'm like this. I've actually like changed in a lot, and it's funny because I was talking to my journey buddy, and she was like, "Do you think this is happening because like who you are now is different than like who you used to be before you started your journey?" And I was like, no, because who I was before I started my journey, I wouldn't put up with this or tolerate this at all. I would have immediately said, da 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 da. I'm not interested. If this is how you're gonna be, if this is who you're gonna be, if this is what you have to offer, it's not for me. Bye. But Numi is like, oh my gosh, like maybe I was a little quick to be a little harsh. Like my best friend is my best friend because we worked through the up and downs of our relationship, because we got to know each other as people, and because we got to respect each other as people. And in that, we've also challenged each other to grow. I am, in a lot of ways, who I am today because of him, because he taught me patience. And I know it wasn't easy for him all the time, but he's a better person too. His girlfriend will tell you that. His fiance, sorry. Sugar. Sugar, da 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 da. Oh, honey, honey. Maybe they're like as mean or as whatever as you think you are. You're still sweet. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a Pisces. I'm nice. I'm sweet. Don't talk to my Taurus moon, my Taurus rising, my Venus in Aries, my Mars in Cancer. Just know that I'm a Pisces. None of the other placements matter. But also know that there are two fish in Pisces. One of them is like a shark. The other one is a deep sea horror. And the other one is kind of like an octopus. And then the other one is just like there. So maybe like a goldfish. I don't know. Pisces is also mutable. So the fish can be like literally anything. One of them can be an airplane sometimes. And that's when it gets really weird. But they say like airplane is the man made mechanical fish of the sky. So it works. The Blue Temple, Azure Vault, and Sugar Sacrum. 31 and 54. I'm going to read both of these. We'll start with Sacrum 31. Excuse me. Sacred sweetness, pleasure, and attraction. Oh, how sugar dances on the tongue. No matter how intellectual and scholarly our pursuits, sugar reminds us of our longing for simple pleasures. Until the 12th century, our need for sweetness, it is, after all, one of the 5 essential tastes in Ayurveda. Our need for sugar, our need for sweetness was fulfilled by raw honey offered by the bees. Until the 12th century, Spirit Guide, the bee that we saw in like the Benevolent Guide or whatever, was giving us the honey. Now in modern times, it's like, why don't you go out and manufacture and synthesize your own honey, your own sweetness honey? We're on to bigger and better things. Get with the program. Come on, you want this. You asked for it, literally. You asked for it. And then, anyway, it's fine. Let me, I would say let me bring it in, but this video is almost over, so. Was fulfilled by raw honey offered by the bees. This material had many medicinal properties and was known in alchemy as a sacred elixir. Now, most of our sources of sweetness, both literally and metaphorically, are highly processed, defined for us by a culture of consumption. This card is a call to explore the simple sweetness in life. Can you add tenderness to your alchemical experiment? How about joy or even laughter? I do laugh. I still laugh. I did feel almost called out for like half a second when they were like, can you be tender with your delivery? And it's like, no. If you want tender, go somewhere else. I'm not interested in tender. But I'm also not interested in the sake of being like this just to be like this. You know what I mean? This card is a call to explore the simple sweetness in life. Can you add tenderness to your alchemical experiment? How about joy or even laughter? It is likely the pleasure you crave will not be found from manufactured means, but from the childlike wonder residing in the heart. Remember the alchemical wisdom of like attracts like. I said that earlier. Like attracts like. I feel like that was for. Was that during this video actually? No, I think it was for a sign. I feel like it was for Libra. I'm pretty sure it was for Libra. Yeah, because I think Libra had like the energy that you put towards something is the energy that it's going to have when you get it. And that's why it's important to be fully conscious, aware, cognizant, and are mindful of how you're going about acquiring or distancing yourself from whatever you want. For Odin, it was all that Ragnarok. But it was so Ragnarok all the time that it's like he never stopped to consider the ramifications of his actions. And again, in a way, instead of like preventing it, he leads to the cause of it. I think also that was the last time I was live. Not maybe not the last time, maybe the time before that. When it was like spirit speaks spirit, soul speaks soul, energy speaks energy. And we can use all kind of words and even actions to try to convince ourselves and others that we're whatever. But when it comes to energy, energy speaks energy. That's why it was like alchemize the swelgeness rather than just like letting it be. Because if you let it be, it's still going to be there. It's not going to go anywhere. Now it's just this thing within your energetic ethereal body that creates this cosmic bleed that limits your vessel's ability to integrate that cosmic energy. But at the end of the day, we all have our own choices, our own vices, and our own decisions to make. Azure Vault, the Blue Temple. This is celestial realm, the imagination, and expansiveness. Welcome to the Blue Temple, the home of the alchemical imagination. You have entered a space of new depths, new possibilities. The inner eye opens and you become willing to see in a new way. To understand this card, one must study blue itself. It is the celestial color of the sky, the ocean, and the peacock's tail. Though potent, blue slips away. Through this color, our imagination threads together experiences both grim and glorious. We are taken into the depths of mood, of tone, of the rhythm of the blues. The eternal mystery of blue will only deepen as we study it, and this is precisely the point. Leave the cerebral behind, cloak yourself in the sapphire robe, and sit quietly in the vault of mysteries. Leo had the Keeper of Mysteries at the bottom of the deck. Cough, cough, by the way. I mean, Leo literally did. I don't know why I had to, whatever, but yeah, this was whatever. I feel like it was pretty solid for a hot while. And then, Patrick did it. Oh, goodness. But yeah, this year has been wild. This year's been crazy. And again, it was like, I guess it's just so. But also, I'm the type of person where, like, reverse psychology, honestly, I feel like sometimes it kind of works on me, but I'm also decent at being able to pick up when somebody is trying to manipulate me. And one thing that the Taurus in me does not do, one thing that the Pisces in me doesn't do, one thing that no planet anywhere in my chart does is subtle manipulation. So I'm not the person where it's like, hey, Patrick, are you my friend? Hey, Patrick, how much do you love me? Whenever someone leads a question with how much do you love me, I'm like, prepare yourself to find out the answer, because that's not about to get me to do something that I don't want to do. And you might hurt your own feelings because I don't love you that much. I don't love you enough to compromise myself, my integrity, or whatever. And you're not about to use my love for you, our platonic, you're not, even if we were romantically involved, you wouldn't even use that against me. That would be my cue that you're not for me. If you would use and weaponize my love for you against me to do something that you know I'm uncomfortable with or that I'm fundamentally not aligned with, you're telling me you're not good for me. And I'm not the one for you. And it's just like, I forget where I was going with that. That's what I was talking about when I was like, see, old Patrick would have just been like, no, because that's not cool. That's not love. Love is not you trying to use it against me to manipulate me to do something. I was like, I am like kind of gullible sometimes. I don't always see everything, but whenever something is like that, I'm like, oh, okay. Just ask for what you want and respect my wishes, respect my answer. Because that most definitely is not going to get you what you want. In fact, that might get you the opposite of what you want. But it's just like, it's wild to me. You know what I mean? But sometimes it's like, oh, Patrick, like, how much do you love me? Hey, Patrick, are you my friend? I'm like, and they're like, hey, like, can you do this for me? And I'm like, okay, yeah, right. Like, you don't even got to do all that. If you're asking for something that's like like, I'm the type of person, I don't mind being inconvenienced for the people that I care about. I really don't mind. But like I said, if it's something where I feel like I have to compromise my integrity, my morality, whatever, it's a no. And my friends will respect my no. And that's why the dude who's my best friend now, he was like, I think sometimes like you should be more flexible. And I was like, no, because I'm flexible in all of the ways that I can be. And when I have a hard boundary, I have a hard boundary for a reason. And I'm not just about to go, whatever for nobody because why? No. Mm-mm. No. And now look at me. More flexible than ever. I don't know. Sometimes people be wild though. Anyway, what's the point of all of this? I don't know. I literally don't remember why I brought that up. because I think I was gonna like say something. Whereas like sometimes I can be like kind of gullible, honestly. But the only times where I'm not gullible is when I can like clearly, bluntly, obviously tell, blatantly tell that somebody's trying to manipulate me. And that don't fly at all. Ever. And like I said, back before my healing journey, I was a lot quicker to be like, no. And by the way, you're out of my life. I don't need this in my life. If that's the kind of person you're going to be, I'm not interested. But not everybody is like that. You know what I mean? I don't know. Who is for you, and who isn't. But Patrick has never been the type of person. I wish y'all could talk to my mother. She'll tell y'all, Patrick ain't never been the type of person to put up with a whole bunch of foolishness. I've never been the type of person to respect people just because they're older than me. I give everybody the same amount of respect. But you're not going to disrespect me because I'm younger than you. You don't get automatic extra respect because you're older, because what? You're still fallible. You can still be wrong. I asked my mom something. I was like, Mom, did I ever have a whatever? And she was like, you didn't even listen to me growing up. Like, why would you think that you listened to anybody else? And I was like, I didn't, but maybe I did. I think that's one reason why I got in trouble a lot when I was a kid. Because a lot of adults like demanded a respect that honestly they didn't deserve. Because it's like, I don't care if I am a child. I'm an entire human being with an entire heart, an entire mind. I have feelings. I am complex. I am an individual. And although I am a child, you're not about to treat me like one. Not when it comes to invalidating, like the things that I've never been cool with, invalidating my feelings or trying to manipulate me. I just go off. And then I just be like, okay, you're out of my life forever. Bye. And I really didn't at that point, I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm missing out on somebody who would like use my love for them against me. Like, oh my gosh, I'm like losing someone who will like is totally cool with like trying to get me to violate my moral ethical principles rather than respecting them. Like what exactly am I losing? You know what I mean? Whew. I don't know if that's my Venus in Aries. Like I have a water trine, a fire trine, and an air trine in my chart. The air trine is the loosest. The fire trine is very tight. It's like Venus, Chiron, in my North Node. Admittedly, like if I'm not in my North Node and if my Chiron is triggered in a way that gets me to like not, but I feel like if it's triggered either way though, either it's going to be fire trine triggered in a great way or fire trine triggered in an explosive way. Honestly, when I was really, really, really little, it was a fire trine triggered in an explosive way. But now I get to be fire trine triggered in like ways that are like all about like, oh my gosh, like these experiences that I want to have and these things that I want to do. And it gives me the courage to be brave in a way that I haven't been in a long time. And I get to capitalize on the fire in my chart, especially when it comes to people, environment, situations where it's like honored. You know what I mean? I get to be that's one thing that I asked for. I demanded from spirit. I was like, you know what? I want to be my kind, open-hearted, generous self, and I want to be able to give without boundaries. I want to be able to give without fear of being taken advantage of or whatever. And in a way, I got it. I very much so got it, honestly. And I guess because it feels like the past 2 years since May 2020, since the North Node moved into Gemini and the South Node moved into Sagittarius. Not only did I get more, but I feel like it's the nature of my grand fire trine. And I say that because like in a trine, it's very easy for when one planet in that trine is activated, the energy from whatever it's trining is also activated because it's just that synchronistic and harmonious. So it was like my North Node in Sagittarius was being activated when the South Node was in Gemini. But then that activated my Chiron in Leo. Because in order to be in my North Node in Sagittarius, I can't be restricted by my Chiron in Leo. Right? Like, how am I supposed to be Sagittarian blunt? I'm gonna tell you like it is, and I don't care how you feel about it. If I'm afraid to like be seen, or I don't want to be like noticed, or like I don't want to stand out, I can't do those two things simultaneously. But then my Venus and Aries, I'm like, whoo. Anyway, mind your business. It's something that I've been prepared for. It's a challenge that I was presented by the universe in opposition. Because again, like North Node Gemini was, oh, I guess the South Node in Sagittarius was conjuncting my North Node in Sagittarius. But like for me, when it came to Chiron healing, and Chiron is also in Aries. So through that trine, I've had an opportunity. I'm not the type of person that believes that you have to wait until a certain transit happens to do whatever, because energy is there. And because the planets basically operate off of a clock, they are gears and spokes on a wheel. The planets are going to move in the solar system how they move. It's why ephemeris work. If the movements were erratic and random, people wouldn't be able to like years out, this conjunction is going to happen on this day or whatever. And like that's why we have aspects. If something aspects the planet, like that's your access to that energy right there. Is it exact? No. Is it going to be the easiest? No. If it's a square or an opposition, is it going to be difficult? Probably. But that opportunity is still there. And maybe that's one thing that really changed for me in life, is that I became the type of person to seize opportunity, or to take opportunities where they're presented, because I was very much so not that person. And that's one of the things that happened in my darkest night, where it was like, I don't want to be like this anymore. Because if I'm not taking an opportunity, it's because of fear. Fear dictated so much of my life, literally like everything. I was like diagnosed, like, I don't know how, whatever, but it was like major depressive disorder. And that was what, the year before my darkest night. But I've known, like, I'm aware, I'm self-aware enough, I'm connected with myself enough, I'm honest enough with myself that if something's wrong with me, more often than not, I know what it is. I lived a whole life of choosing not to face those things because I was afraid. So that's why, like, when I came out of my darkest night, that's why I was chasing everything I was afraid of. I was like, we're going to work through this fear, we're going to work through that fear. I discovered fears that I had that were like, I thought the fear was hidden behind another fear, but after I worked through that fear, like this fear was still here. Like my eyes were a big thing for me, and then life happened and a cataract surgery happened, and now my life is like completely different, and a lot of the issues that I had at that point aren't even necessarily affecting me anymore. Definitely not to the same degree, but I had to work through fear to get to the solution. And that's another thing. It's like I had to accept this within myself. I had to work through that. And now all of a sudden, it's like, oh, like you have cataracts. It's a simple surgery and your insurance covers it. Like, oh, what was the other thing? I already forgot. I was like, oh, like now I'm meeting people who can accept these things about me that it took me a minute to be comfortable with. It's not until, for me, it wasn't until I found the acceptance and the love within myself. And honestly, I prefer it that way because now my love for self isn't in a weird way entwined or entangled with someone else's love and acceptance of me. You know, it's like, let's say that somebody came into my life and they loved me. And because they loved me, I was able to love these parts of me if this was my journey. And then let's say for some reason that person exits my life. Like, well, does my love for myself still exist? Or was my love for me predicated upon like them loving me? And if I feel like they don't love me anymore, then do I still love me? Because I only love me because they loved me. And I was like, I ain't got time for that. I say I didn't have time for it. The universe did not allow for that to be my experience. Let's be honest. Let's be frank. Let's be real honest. Let's be real frank and honest. The universe didn't give me that opportunity because I probably would have taken it if I could have. But I mean, it kind of sort of in a way, maybe it did a little bit. But I was like, this love that I have for me is mine. The love that I had for you is mine. I like, if I love you, I love you. That love is mine. That's not yours. You don't get to take that love to the bank and do anything with it. So when you leave, when whatever happens, like I still have that love and I can appreciate it and I can hold it as mine. And it doesn't have to sour. It doesn't have to get weird. It doesn't have to do anything. I can hold it in my heart. I can archive it. This is someone who meant a lot to me for whatever period of my life. And I will always treasure and honor that. And I will never do anything to sort of speak against that or work against that because that's not who I am. I'm not so moved to anger or vengeance or whatever because someone who has their own life, their own free will, their own journey, their own everything didn't reciprocate my feelings. Like, okay, well, it happens, first of all. But that's just me. I feel like I'm kind of weird in that way too, because a lot of people get weird. But also, it's been my experience has been my experience. So it's easy for me in some ways to think and feel the ways that I think and feel because my experience hasn't been anything different. And that's why like I love being me. I've always loved being me, even when there were things about me that I didn't like. I still loved being me. You know what I mean? Like I feel like my experience, not that it has to be any different than anybody else's on the planet, but my experience is so much my own and I appreciate, like I said earlier, I'm the type of person that loves evolving. I love to feel like I'm changing. I love to feel like I'm like going somewhere in life, but that somewhere isn't necessarily like I want to be a billionaire by the time I turn 35. It's just like as long as I'm becoming more loving or more open minded, more open hearted, as long as I'm becoming more me, as long as I am doing the things that I truly, genuinely want to do instead of not because of the unknown that I fear, like I'm good, I'm happy. That's what life is about for me. So, this whole healing thing, like I was all about it. But also at the same time, now I'm like, I want to explore this healing. I want to explore who I am. I want to explore all of the things that I was too afraid to explore before. And like I said, I made my demands to the universe. And when the universe said, here it is, I said, ooh. I was like, ooh, this is a lot. I'm going to work through it. I want to pull a Whispers of Organize Your Heart. I was like, I'm going to work through it because, is this my 2022, 2021, 2020 year in review? Maybe it is at the end of this video shoot. I'm just going to keep going with it until I don't feel like going no more. But yeah, this year it was like, ooh, because I feel like the beginning of the year was very like me learning to stand up for myself. It was me challenging myself to do things that fear told me I couldn't do. And then at some point, it was me doing like everything. But in the midst of me doing everything, in the midst of all the chaos, and in the midst of misery in some ways, I found what I was looking for. And then that challenged me in a way that it's taken me my eternal journey. It's taken me my entire journey to be in a position to be able to face and to be able to let go of. Because so much of my journey in the beginning was about working through fear, but it feels like this past year in a way has been about working through pain. And a lot of that pain, it's like the fear of pain. A lot of that pain is like imagined. I mean, not entirely, but yeah. And we'll see. We'll see where I end up. I feel like the universe is pushing me in a certain direction right now that for me it's so like, has anything ever been so almost divinely synchronicitous or so energetically fluid that everything makes sense before any of it makes sense? And then it's like, I'm not gonna like Nine of Swords overthink this. Well, not even a Nine of Swords overthink, because it's not like keeping me up at night. You know what I mean? But we'll say Nine of Swords because, well, it's like somewhere between the eight. I'm not gonna seven, eight, Nine of Swords this. Like, I'm not gonna overthink it to the point where it keeps me up at night and then I self sabotage. That's the seven and the nine. And then the Eight of Swords, I'm not gonna allow it to like immobilize me. You know what I mean? But it's just like, it's so weird. But also like, it's this level of flow or this state of flow that I've been calling forward and working towards like all year. Like every time I talk to my journey buddy, it was like, I know that everything that I'm healing through, everything I'm working through, everything I'm releasing, me maintaining my power to make choices and decisions in the face of fear, me having agency in a space where I would have fled so fast and so far before. Like, I know that it's all leading up to something. My word for 2023, I think I tell y'all my word every now and then. My word for 2022 was allow. So, all of that stubborn everything in me, my word for 2022 was allow. Because, and it's funny how it's like, is it the word that makes the year, or is it our ability to receive the word that is just like, that's what the year is going to be? You know what I mean? But it was most definitely difficult at some points. Um, but that was one thing that I feel like, maybe it's because I could feel that. Well, yeah, I did know because I came up with my word. It was either late 2021 or early 2022. I think it was like really close to New Year's, and there were things that I was afraid of, like my coworker going on maternity leave and me fearing having to do everything by myself in January, and then it literally happening because one coworker was out on maternity leave and the other coworker was out sick most of the month. My fear came to be, but because my fear came to pass, I realized that I was actually a lot more capable than I thought I was. You know what I mean? Which has been another thing for me. Um, I've been fortunate enough, question mark, that, I mean, in some ways it's pretty obvious. In other ways, it's like, really? But like, I've never really had to try in life. Like, school and academia were things that came easy to me. A lot of people might say that my brain is like a sponge. And for me, it works that way because, and it's funny because I think I was playing a game or something, and it was like, the secret of understanding is not trying to understand. Maybe it was a YouTube thumbnail, but like, I'm the type of person where like, I allow the situation or a person or whatever material I'm learning to tell me who they are. And so it's not like when I'm sitting in class and I'm learning something, I'm like trying to pull up every single thing that I've ever learned to see what this is like. I'm not trying to force the information to fit any kind of box. I'm listening, I'm accumulating knowledge, I'm accumulating information. And then it's like when you hear enough of it, it just kind of makes sense. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, this is that. Rather than trying to be like, oh, like, is this, is this whatever? And so because of that, like learning has come easy to me. And also because like I ran away from everything that was a challenge. Now I know that part too. Anything that did challenge me, I ran away from. So- but I don't know. It became this weird time where it's like, I actually want to try. First, I was like, yeah, I want to try. And then I had to do stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm scared. I don't know. And it's funny because I was talking to one of my friends the other day. And he was like, everything I do full throttle. Like, I do full force. And I was like, wow, like, I am the opposite. But if I talk too much, I'll lose my train of thought. But yeah, that's another thing that this year has given me the opportunity to do is to actually have to apply myself, is to actually work. One thing I keep meaning to talk about, but I think I forget to actually say it every time. Is like this year also taught me such a no-brainer nonsense lesson in that if I don't do the things that I'm not good at, I'll never get better at them. Like gram staining was one thing that I was terrible at. My eyes were like pretty much always bad enough that using microscopes was a nightmare for me. And so every time I was in the lab, I had a partner. When I was at work, I had a coworker. And she did all the micros. She did most of it. I did it sometimes, but I would break slides and then get super frustrated. And it wasn't until she left, it wasn't until I was the only person there that I had to do it. And I was dreading it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not trying to spend all day doing this. But then, like, it didn't even take me that long to get like acclimated to it. And now I can just do the gram stains. Now I can just use the microscope, and it's not that big of a deal. But it's like it's something that I had actively avoided for so long. It was something that I was able to get somebody else to do. That it's like I never got better. But again, like I said, it makes sense. If you never do the thing, how are you going to get any better? So when they ask me in my next interview, this is the anecdote that I'm going to give them, by the way, if you're curious. Sustenance, this is solar plexus chakra. I don't think I've seen the sustenance card. Bottom of the deck is inner knowing, 7 and 17. Under that inner knowing is openness. Openness is a card I've seen before. Sustenance and inner knowing is interesting. Because it's like that's what we're feeding, or maybe that's what this year for me has been about. It's about feeding that inner knowing. And it's like when we feed the inner knowing, like that azure temple, like the blue temple, not only does like my inner knowing, not only has it deepened, but it's also given me the ability, it's like it's given me access to all of the things that I discovered as I went deeper. So it's like now I can have a conscious recollection of something, or now I can consciously use something that was located in the subconscious more so than like buried in the subconscious. And it's with that openness, love. Oh, look. The same plate. See? The plate and then the plate in the hand right there. Let's get another one. What was I talking about? Yeah, I had to challenge myself at the beginning of the year. The end of, so like the beginning of the year for me was more like physical, like earthly limitation. Also, I've been in my Saturn return this year. I have my last hit in like 2 weeks, I think. Saturn is going to pass by me one final time, like 23 degrees Aquarius. And then I'm done. And then it's going to move into Pisces, and it'll be what, 28, 29, 30 more years until I have another one. But the end of the year has been emotional and spiritual in a way. Not necessarily mental, but I guess kind of emotional, like getting over stuff. And again, it was the fear of pain that caused me to not, like, a lot of my relationship anxiety was around like the fear of pain. Um, and part of what I needed to work through that was to find myself in a few situations. Like I said, I was making demands from spirit. I was like, I want to be open. I want to give and not have to worry about being taken advantage of, or not having to not have to worry about it being too much. Like, I want to be able to give to my heart's content, because that's who I am. I'm a giver. My son is in my 11th house. I'm a people pleaser, but not in that way anymore. Anyway, um, but when it came to, like, again, that's why for me, a lot of the stuff that I was asking for was hidden behind triggers, because it was like, oh, like, I'm faced with what I was asking for, and now I feel some type of way, and now I have to work through all of these emotions. And there was a point where, like, it was so interesting. So, like, ever since like March 2020, I kid you not, my relationship with my shadow has changed. And that's why for me, it's like there's my light, there's my dark, there's like the internal child, and then there's the Patrick, right? Honestly, like, my inner child, I feel like my inner child isn't a child, honestly, at least not at this point. There's an inner being. There's my light, my dark, and then this inner being, which is almost like the idealized Patrick in a way, or the integrated Patrick in a way. But anyway, it's like there was a conversation that I had with myself March 2020 where I was devastated. And I was like, I want to sink to the emotional depths, and I want to conjure up all of the rage. And I was like, all right, shadow, let's do this. And my shadow was like, no. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean, no? You're my shadow. What do you mean, no? My shadow was like, I'm just as hurt as you are. I'm hurting just as much as you are. And if you're going to put yourself in these feelings, know that you are doing it. Literally had that conversation with myself. I know it's probably weird for some of y'all. But my shadow was like, literally like, no, I'm just as hurt as you are. I care just as much as you do. And I'm not gonna do it. And I was like, wow. So my shadow done switched sides on me. But also before that, it was, I think, like August 2019. No, that was like end of July, early August 2019. That, I think it was after that, it was a point where, so I had slash have an abandonment wound, just like a lot of people do, honestly. I had an abandonment wound, and I was on my journey. I mean, my darkest night was 2018, so. And like from January 2019, I was very, very, very determined to work through anything that I had to work through, because my darkest night scared me enough. I was like, I'm not going to survive if I go back to that place. And I'm already past 25 or reaching 25. So year 24 for me was a very like gap year. It transitioned me out of one and enough into the other that I had my darkest night and I did something about it, rather than just being depressed for like a few weeks to a few months and then just trying to ram my head into the wall again. I was like, I need to actually do all of the things that I keep telling everybody. Like, I'm too busy in the school year to focus on my mental health. And over the summer, I'm too busy working to focus on my mental health. And so it's like, okay, well, you've already quit for the rest of this semester and you're going to be dropped next semester. So take that time to work on your mental health. And then when I had my darkest night, I was like, yes, we're taking time to work on my mental health. And I remember there was one point in early February where like I couldn't pay my rent, literally hungry, literally afraid of being like evicted. I had to reach out to like the penny pinchingest friend that I have, aka my best friend. Oh, I'm so glad I haven't had to do that again. Oh, he thinks he's somebody daddy. Um, but it was real whatever. And there was a part of me that was like, I need to get work. Like, I need to find a job. But every time, and it was mostly more so in February at that one point in time, it was like you always said that either you were too busy working or too busy in school to do this healing. Now you're not working and you're not in school. So you can do it. And I was like, oh, I did say that. And that's for me when it was really helpful that, like, right now I am not on the verge of death. I'm so hungry. Right now, no one is banging on my door telling me that I gotta get out. Right now, in this moment, everything is okay enough for me to continue focusing on my healing, for me to continue working through, digging through, letting whatever come to the surface that needs to come up, letting it come up and healing it. And thankfully, because of friends and family and the grace of the Lord's and local resources, like the township, it was like the township or something I went to, and they like covered a month of rent for me. I didn't even know they do that, but I had a friend who like worked with the homeless community and stuff like that. So I was like, do you have any resources, girl? Because I'm about to be on the streets. And he's the one that let me know. Luckily, it worked out. It all worked out. And then I started working just in time. But then it was that whole like I was healing in a chamber. I was healing in isolation. And then I had to go out and work and live in the real world. And I did have my journey buddy, thankfully. So when I went out into the real world, she was very helpful at being like, Patrick, you already know this. Like, you already know what to do. You already know that this is this. That's why for 2020, I'm pretty sure it was 2020. That's why my word was integrate. Because of all of the time she was like, Patrick, you already know this. You already know what to do. You've already gone through this lesson. You've already learned it. Put that learning into play. And I was like, okay. I made 2022 my word because it was like, I'm tired of repeating the same things over and over. I'm ready to like bring in this healing and like act from that space rather than like being triggered and having to come back and find it again. Girl, I'm going all the way back. Again, my train of thought, I don't know. But two, for me, it's like most of my healing was done independently. A lot of it was me sitting with me. A lot of it was me like in meditation. Honestly, there was some like vision questy type things, but when you really want to know, you ask yourself, you ask God, Spirit, Universe, your angels, your ancestors, your guides, you get quiet, you allow them to show you, you go on the journey. Sometimes stuff comes up that you don't want to face, sometimes it do. Or sometimes, yeah, it's stuff that you don't want to face. Sometimes it's not that big of a deal. But like I said, I was very, very, very serious about my journey. So I was looking for the things that scared me the most. Again, like I feel like I'm talking so much, I'm losing my train of thought. I guess it's interesting to recount this from this space in my life. But yeah, that's why I faced so many things. And like I said, my journey up until this year was very, very necessary for me to successfully navigate the year, for me to rise to the challenges rather than like run away. Because, like I said, last November 2021, when they were like, hey, when she was like, hey, so I'm going to be going on maternity leave next year and you're going to have to do this job. And I was like, this is not what I signed up for. Like, I was triggered in a way that I had not been triggered since my darkest night, October 2018. Like, I was used to being depressed all the time. I remember January 2019, February 2019, before, and again, like those moments were honestly few and far between when I was like, oh, I need to work. What am I doing? But a friend would like call me, or I would talk to my friends. I'd be like, I feel like I'm in the objectively worst situation I've ever been in my life. I feel like I have every reason to be completely distraught, but for some reason, like I'm not depressed right now. I was like, I'm strangely and oddly enough not depressed. I'm starving. I might get evicted any second now, but I've never been in a better mental space ever. And your question is, Patrick, what were you smoking? The answer is nothing. Not only because I don't smoke, but also because I wouldn't have been able to afford anything. But yeah, and it was surprising, like again. But because of that, it's like I haven't felt depression like I felt it before my journey. But when that fear came back, it was visceral. It was like I was transported to pre-journey Patrick. I'm like freaking out on the verge of just like crying or whatever. And my turnaround process is generally, that's why I started talking about it. It's generally like 2 days. I'm like, you know what? I'm scared. I'm freaking out. I don't know if I can do this. Day one. Day two is when I internally start to calm down a little bit, but I'm still like on edge. By day three, I'm like, you know what? I lived a certain experience. I don't want to go back. I'm at least gonna try. I'm gonna face it. Because I can always quit and run away and cry and scream later. I can always bail out later. I might as well try. Um, but I think that's why I was talking about it. I worked back and I already forgot. Um, yeah, yeah. So it was like 2019. No, it was like March 2020 when my shadow was like, "I'm hurt too," and I was like, "Oh wow." And my shadow was like, "If you're gonna do this, this is you doing it." I was like, "Okay." So one day, my abandonment wound. That's what I was talking about. I don't remember. It might have actually been in 2019, in the first half of 2019, when I was like noticing that I wasn't depressed. And like I came home early 2019, and usually my room was a disaster. And I come home or I go somewhere and then I come back to my room and it's a mess. It's a disaster. And I'm like, why didn't I clean it before I left? It's because I have to destroy my room to find all of the things because I was packing at the last minute again. So I left and I went back to my room and I was like, wow, like it was actually clean. Like my bed was made and everything. I was like, oh my gosh. And I think for me, that's when it, like all of the healing, mental, emotional, spiritual stuff that I was doing, like I noticed it internally, but I spent so much time with myself, like, you know what I mean? But also like leaving and then coming back to my room not being a mess, like I saw it reflected in my environment and I was like, oh wow. And then I forget what triggered it, but I had a moment with myself. I had a moment with my shadow where my like abandonment wound was triggered. And I was like, I'm not gonna abandon you. Like you're just as much of a part of me as any other part of me. And I know the pain of that feeling too well for me to turn around and do the same thing to myself. Actually, this might have been 2020. Because when I had in March 2020, when I had that conversation with my shadow, when I had that conversation with myself, when my shadow was like, I'm hurting just as much as you're hurting. I loved and cared just as much as you loved and cared, and I'm not doing this. And I was like, wow, Shadow, I can't believe you switched signs. I can't believe you're going to do this to me. Personal transformation, number 35. And belonging on at the bottom of the deck. I was like, all right, Shadow, like we are ascending, we are healing, we're changing our life because that was for the birds. And my shadow was very much so on board. But in that moment, again, that's why for me, that's not the only reason why, but that helps me to be like, there's a difference between like internal dark and like shadow. And I feel like that's when my shadow like became dark. Or became like the darkness in me, or that's how I recognize it as the darkness in me. But it didn't have to be shadow. It wasn't shadow in that way because it wasn't competing with my light. My light and my dark were on the same page. And that's why shadow was like, if you're going to do this, this is you doing this. And the reason why I brought that up is because there were ways that I was challenged in the past few months. And there have been so many times within the past year where spirit, where the divine would be like, where my intuition and discernment would be like, do this. Like, speak up for yourself, say something, talk, whatever. Open your mouth. And I would procrastinate and I would be like, no. And so then my inner light was like, okay, well, like do this, do this, da, 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 da. Eventually I would do it. But there was one thing in the way of like the heaviest triggers where like internal light would say something, or like my intuition would tell me something and I wouldn't follow through with it. And when I was talking about how like I'm thankful to my journey buddy and to Reem and to Eve for validating and confirming what I knew as true, while old mental fear, trauma, vice Patrick was like, not even Patrick, honestly. But it was just like patterns and fears and stuff was like, oh, like it's this, it's that, it's blah, blah, blah. And I knew it wasn't that, but one night I was like so just like over it. I was Nine of Swords then. Very Nine of Swords then. Um, and I was just like I'm done. I'm not gonna do this. Like I'm scared. I want to run away. I'm not ready. And like I said, I would make a demand, and then it would be like, okay, what are you gonna do now? And then I would break down because I was afraid. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no. But that's when like my inner, like I feel like calling it my inner darkness is weird. But again, like it's not a shadow anymore. And so interestingly enough, it's like now that same part of me that would rise to like pull me into the depths of depression, it became a buoyant force for me. So it's like whenever I would sink too far or whenever I would start to sink into it, like instead of pulling me deeper, it would like lift me back up. And it was like, well, inner light has been saying this, your intuition, the divine has been telling you this. And you, again, it's like weird. But like this is who I am for other people. So for me to be this amazing supportive friend to myself, self-love, we love to see it. It was a journey. Um, but it was like there are things that are like you can do. And I understand why you feel this way. But at the same time, like you still haven't done those things. You haven't done it yet. Like what you are receiving as truth is truth, and it's true. And so then I was like a child, and I was like, so Shadow or Dark was like, so are you gonna do the thing that, you know, the divine and your inner light has been telling you to do? And I'm like, yeah, yeah, I'll do it. And then I turn around and do it the next day, and everything is fine. Is that a theme? Patrick throws a tantrum. Patrick does the thing that he knows he was supposed to do. Patrick finds out that he was throwing a tantrum for no reason. That's literally been the past few months for me. Even like, I was like, my operational bonus, I was expecting to get a certain dollar amount on my operational bonus. When it came through, it was not that amount. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they cheated me out of like X dollars. Like, this place ain't never been, like, they've been toxic from the very beginning. And while they were toxic in the beginning, I was ready to be mad. But I talked to my best friend, the penny pincher, the Libra. I guess one of the Libras. I have multiple Libra best friends now. It's kind of weird. Aries. Oh, I have a few Aries best friends. I have, if I don't include my grandma, I have a Taurus. Well, they're equally really good friends. I have a few really good Taurus friends. Geminis are all the people I met in college. So many Gemini friends. I don't know if any of those would necessarily be best friends, but my cousin is a really good friend. But again, she's like my cousin. She's my cousin through marriage, but still, like, she's been family since I've been a conscious, cognizant being. For as long as I can remember, she's been in my life. Cancer. Cancer is weird because I feel like I know people who are cancers, but I never like think of them as cancers. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? I'm always all like, oh yeah, they're a cancer, but like when it comes to trying to remember when their birthday is, I'm like, Leo, I actually have a lot of really good Leo friends now. There was a time where I didn't think I liked Leo, and then I met a bunch of Leos, and I was like, wait, I love Leo. What am I talking about? Virgo, yes. Before college, everybody was a Virgo. After college, everybody was a Gemini. I don't have to go through all the signs. I'm like, do I have like multiple best friends in different signs? The answer is yes. Um, but anyway, the penny pinching best friend, I texted him and I was like, oh my gosh, they cheated me. Da, 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 da. I'm going to ask. I was like, I'm going to say something. So regardless, I'm already mad. I'm like, I can't believe it. They did this. I sent the email today. I'm like, I get a reply today on Christmas of all days, right? And it's like, hey, like, according to the document, the maximum was actually more than you thought, and you did get the maximum. The amount that hit your bank is post-tax. And so I was relieved that I wasn't like, because I really thought I've put so much in. I worked so hard. Y'all probably can tell. Maybe not. I worked so hard for these people. I challenged myself in so many ways, and I feel like I would have been more than justified in quitting, in leaving, and allowing my fear and not great people to chase me out. But that wasn't what was for me to learn. And I was like, wow, they really cheated me after all that. Come to find out they didn't. But since they put it all in one check, the government took like buku money. And I'm like there used to be years of my life where like that, like what they took in taxes, I feel like that would be around like what I made the entire year, like when I was a student working part time. And then I'm talking to my mom, and I'm like, I'm gonna get that money back when I file for my return, right? Like I didn't make so much money that I don't get every single penny that I paid into the government back, right? And she was like, I don't know, like you might not get it all back. And I was like, what? Are you serious? Are you kidding me? She's like, yeah, well, you get paid pretty like decently. And I was like, man. So anyway, it's a good problem to have, I guess. It's much better than the alternative. But it seemed like an obscene amount of money. And she was like, yeah, that's why usually like they should break it up, because when it is more, they take more. I'm like, oh, darn it. But anyway, so yeah, Patrick throws a tantrum for no reason. Patrick finds out there's no reason that he should have thrown that tantrum. Um, but that's how my relationship with my shadow has changed ever since that conversation in 2020. But it was before then, like I told my shadow, I told that, like, there have been a few times when I've had to go to the parts of me that were the most hurt, that were still in some of the most traumatic experiences that I've had up until this point in my life. Hopefully, I'm done with trauma. You know what I mean? Like a bad day, sure. I don't need any new traumas. Um, but there's been a few times where I had to go back and like remove myself from those places, because for a long time for me, there was one place, one memory in particular that served as, I used it as strength. And for me, that was very like, even if I don't think I can do anything, I will never not try. I'm never going to let something just happen to me ever again. Even if I know I'm not going to win, I am not going to not fight. And of course, it was triggered in like the pettiest of ways. Like I had been, that was summer 2019. Like I said, beginning of 2019 was all my healing. It was when I was integrating with the world. And something happened, and I was like, oh, like, I was so petty. I was like, oh, I wish I could have been there. I would have done this. I would have did that. I would have said this. Like, I would have felt so like retribution. Girl, would have felt it. But inner light Patrick was like, you don't need this for strength anymore. Petty shadow Patrick at that point, I don't even know if I can blame my shadow, honestly, just petty Patrick, because the part of Patrick is very petty. You know, some people don't call me Petty Pat for no reason, but they call me Petty Pat because they're being funny, like it's a joke, you know. But I can be a little, if you can't tell by watching me, I can be a little petty sometimes. Um, Not without good reason. If there is a good reason to be petty, that was a justified reason to be petty, believe you me. Um, but inner light was just like, you don't need this for strength anymore. It took me a few days. I was talking about it. I was like, man, I wish I could have da 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 da. I got it out of my system, and then I was like, you know what? Light Patrick, you're right. This, I don't need this to be my strength anymore, because I found new strength. And so I was like out on campus when that happened. I went back to my room and I cried. I cried. I cried. I cried. And I went back to that memory, and I let myself go. Um, but for me, it was also important that like I thanked the part of me that stayed there. I thanked the part of me that was forced to relive that trauma, basically, over and over, because it did give me strength when I didn't have anything else to use. Um, so I've had a very full journey. It hasn't necessarily been long. I mean, it gets longer every day, right? But it hasn't been without its moments. And again, like, when that's what I started to talk about. When I started my journey, I wasn't really on YouTube. Um, all I got from YouTube was like a 2 hour meditation, and it wasn't even a guided meditation. It was like a 2 hour binaural beat, and I would literally meditate the full 2 hours, go about my day, and then maybe meditate for like another hour later. And then I got on Headspace, so I was doing like the app Headspace. I was doing a full hour, hour and a half, 2 hour binaural beat meditation. And then I would do like the 10, 15 minute Headspace meditation. When I first downloaded Headspace, I set it for like a 5 minute meditation because I was like, oh my gosh, that's going to take so long. After doing those 2 hour meditations, 15 minutes was nothing. And I'm like, man, it's over already. It's time to put on another binaural beat. I don't meditate like that anymore. I can't meditate like that anymore. Oh gosh, who was that? But in the beginning of my journey, girl, steadfastness and blessings, number 44 at the bottom of the deck. Love that. I will be steadfast, unmovable, always abiding in you. Personal transformation again under the blessings. So yeah, and I think it's because I had moments like that with different parts of me that were in a perpetual state of pain and trauma back when I needed those things to be strong, that I was able to have that conversation with my shadow, or not even my shadow specific, well, kind of sort of my shadow specifically, because I kind of like lumped it all in the shadow at that point. All of the other parts of me that were just held in like pain and trauma and fear and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm not going to leave you. I'm not going to abandon you. This is all of Patrick ascending, all of Patrick healing, no Patrick left behind, because I know how much it hurts when Patrick feels left behind. Maybe that was like one of the first real acts of self-love. Well, not first real acts of self-love, because I feel like making the choice to face everything and being as steadfast and persistent, drive, for having that drive to start an energetic drive and energetic movement. 5 and 14, revelation is behind energetic movement. This came out around the broken heart. 5 was attachment. 14 was carrying connections. Ew. Excuse me. And the energy oracle cards. I think that was an act of self-love too. So it's been self-love since the beginning, right? But I guess that was a different kind of self-love. And that's why it's like, I don't know, nurture. That's why I don't mind. Like I said, like I'm not gonna abandon my shadow. So that's a part of me. But again, for me, it's almost like since that's the nature of our relationship, and since that's the tone of the conversation now, there is no part of me besides residual fear in me, or fear that I legitimately feel, that wants anything but forward progress and movement. And in the sickest, twisted, most demented way, it's because of all of the hurt, pain, trauma, and fear that I experienced in the past that makes it so easy for me to continue moving forward. Like, there is nothing that I hold enough of an attachment to get me to go back to being who I used to be, to live the life that I used to live. And so, again, like in a weird way, I'm so incredibly blessed to have been burdened in the ways that I was, where I was like, if I end up in this mindset again, I will not be here. And I needed that to like, and it lasted for days. It was literally days. It was the first time I felt an apathetic depression. It was the first time I felt like literally nothing. And it was literally like, if I had the means or the motivation to do anything right now, I would do it. When I came out of that, it was like, if I would have had the means or the motivation to do anything, I would have done it. Usually depression for me was like sad. It was like more than just sad, you know what I mean? But I had never had, until that moment, I had never had a depression where I didn't feel anything. And it scared me enough for me to be like, okay, It's time to do it all. It's time to do everything. And I'm not going back. Um, I think before it was a lot more of that not going back, but now I'm fortunate enough to have opportunities or be exposed to possibilities and potentialities that are so everything that I've ever wanted and things that I don't even have to ask for, that it's like I'm not gonna self sabotage this anymore. I'm not gonna give it up. I'm not going back. I very much so want this. But again, there were more triggers and traumas and fears, mostly fears and fears of pains that I had to work through. And I had to reach that point where I think for the longest time, I had a legitimate fear that, like, as soon as I find happiness, it's going to be taken from me. Either something's going to happen to me or something's going to happen outside of my control, and my happiness will be snatched and I will be broken. I will be beyond broken. And it was the fear of that happening that got me to consciously choose a life of intentional misery. It was that fear that got me to actively avoid anything that would have made me happy. And it was my honest belief that it's better to be constantly miserable than to experience the slightest bit of happiness just to lose it. It's better to never love than to love and lose. So yeah, Patrick was very I was telling my friend some of that, what, 2 or 3 weeks ago now, whenever I visited him. He was like, wow, like, you're toxic. That's toxic. I was like, that's how I used to think. I don't think that way. I don't believe that anymore. But like, that's exactly the reason why I never really involved myself with anybody before, because I knew I would be toxic. Like, I knew I would be hot garbage. I could barely maintain a relationship with myself. And most days I wasn't even doing that because I was playing video games and running away. So it's been a crazy year. Understanding and empowerment. 13 and 23. I'm gonna get one final card from the Whisperers of Lord Ganesha, and then I'm probably gonna end this. So yeah, the end of 2022 going into 2023. So my word for 2022 was allow, because I had so many things and I knew that were, again, like the scare of November 2021, when I was like, I'm gonna have to do what? That's not my job. I was barely brave enough to do what I'm doing right now. Because being a microbiologist is not something that I would have easily been able to do at all with the way that my eyes were working before. No. That's why I wanted a job in computers. Because with a computer, I can put it in enhanced contrast mode. I can use night mode. I can blow up the text as big as I need to, and I can manage okay. The universe had other plans for Patrick because Patrick had other desires for Patrick. So, did the universe plan it? Did Patrick want it? Was it both? Probably. Um, but yeah, what was I saying? Oh, the scare of November 2021. I was like, allow is going to be my word. And I think it was too because just like indescribable was my word for 2021. Indescribable was my word for 2021 because I knew that the year would end in a way that I would not be able to see, predict at the beginning of the year. Something within me just knew that there was no way I would be able to imagine how that year would end for me. I can confirm that at the beginning of 2021, that Patrick would never believe that he would be working the job that he was working. Number one, making the money that he was making. Number two, capable in the ways that he discovered that he was capable. For three, it was indescribable in a way of like not being like unpredictable, but not unpredictable like wild and crazy and random. Unpredictable, like no way to be able to predict. You know what I mean? It was indescribable in that way, and also in the way of like Patrick at the beginning of the year would have no vocabulary to describe. My word for this year was allow, and it's been a challenge sometimes. Um, and allow is interesting because it's like there were ways that the universe, God's spirit, was directing me, aligning me with the things that I was demanding. And I had to allow myself into that. So to allow that, there were fears that I had to face. There were challenges that I had to overcome. There were more and more and more ways that I needed to love myself enough to have self-love be an action word for me rather than just like this frilly thing that I try to like like perform, to make self-love a practice rather than a performance, right? So that self-love for me wasn't like I'm going to buy myself the games that I want, I'm going to buy this food that I want, I'm going to do get this that I want and that I want. And I think a lot of that stuff is a part of self-love, but if that's all I did for me, it would have been a performance. Because there were times where I was called to put that self-love into practice. Sometimes that practice was like establishing a boundary, enforcing that boundary, standing up for myself, speaking, sticking up for myself, not letting somebody just spin whatever kind of yarn they want to weave. Like that was putting self-love into practice. Um, and I had to do all that to allow what I wanted to flow into my experience. Um, and that's what like allow was for me. Like I could already tell I would be asked again. The scare of November 2021 happened. I knew I was going to be challenged in 2022. I knew this year was coming with challenge, and at that point my old boss was already starting to act a certain type of way, and I was like, okay, it's going to be a challenging year. But I know, again, like I had a feeling that, I mean, I know I've journeyed long enough, my journey, to know that every time I work through a fear, every time I allow a tower to come down, the world gets a little brighter, the horizon stretches a little further, and the fields grow a little wider. A little more green for the corn. Um, and I knew that, like, that's what I had to allow. So my word for 2023, that's a drum roll or a tongue roll, is expedition. Woo! I was talking with my journey buddy the other day. No, you didn't miss it. I was backtracking to 2019 and 2020 and 2021. My word for 2023 is expedition. And it's expedition for two reasons. It's it's expedition in the sense of like an adventure, in the sense of like um, a new frontier, going into lands that you've never been in before, I've never been in before. But it's also expedition in the way of like something that is expedited and like speeding something up. So there's an energy of momentum in expedition, but there's also like an energy of play and exploration and adventure and expedition. And that's what it feels like that's what it feels like 2023 is going to be. It feels like it's going to be fast. There's going to be a lot of twists and turns. I'm going to be asked to, in the moment, do stuff. I'm going to be asked to say yes, to go, to have those experiences. And in that, again, I'm going to get exactly what I've been wanting. I'm going to get exactly what I've been asking for. And now, because of 2022, not only do I know I'm capable of doing a lot of those things, I've also had the opportunity to practice courage and bravery to say yes to them. I could say that 2023 is going to be the year of yes, and not but, not actually. And because of that, if the word is expedition, girl, I'm not going to be able to procrastinate. That's going to be the challenge next year. not procrastinating, not dragging my feet. I still haven't booked my ticket to Montreal, and it only gets more expensive. Oh, goodness. All right, I'm going to get a final card. But yeah, that's my word for 2023. My word is, and again, because I was talking to my friend about like allow, and I was like, so does the word set the tone for the year? Is it because of the word that I have the year that I have, that we have the years that we have? Or is it just us? Because when we come up with the word, it's like we do feel into the energy of the year. Like we use our energetic spidey senses to tap into the cosmic web and to see how it's shaking and vibrating. Because when something vibrates and shakes, if you listen and your ear will pick it up and it'll make a word. So I was like, is that what we're doing to get these words? Is it both? Is it either? Is it neither? But is that your year for 2023? Supercalifragilisticexpialidociousness. Are you gonna have a supercalifragilisticexpialidocious 2023, Holly? But yeah, that's my word for 2023. And again, it's like it's so, and the allowance these past few months, it's almost like there's been such an obvious flow. Maybe this is almost like that Leo energy, because when I was reading Leo was weird. Leo was interesting, but it felt like Leo was going like incorporeal. Like Leo was just passing through stuff like a ghost, like not even breaking through obstacles, just like phasing right through it. And it's like, okay, Leo, like you're phasing in and out of reality, just walking through walls or something. Like, what's going on? um what was I talking about? Yeah, because my word was allow, and I chose allow because it held a little bit of flow in it, but it wasn't a passive allowance. That was another thing, because I knew that there would be challenge. It wasn't a passive allowance, it was an active allowance. And it's like there was this obvious flow that took me through some dark places, but the places weren't dark because they were actively dark. It's like those places were dark because they used to be. Like how the river, that Six of Swords, Calmer Waters River, it was passing through some real jaggy. Like there's all these rocks sticking up. Ah, there's a waterfall. Oh my gosh. Piranhas in the water. There's a snake that's crawling up the side of the canoe. It was going through all that. I was like, oh. But it was so, is so easy in a way that it's like, if I think about it, it's weird. If I try to intellectualize it, it is so bizarre. But like spiritually, energetically, it is exactly in alignment with, again, what I was asking for. And in order to allow it, I had to pass through some things. But it never felt like it wasn't what I was supposed to do. And that's been another thing this year. Like this year has been so incredibly challenging from the top. The middle was kind of like, okay. I feel like April to like June ish was okay. From January to April, from January to March was rough. And from July to like November, July to October, part of November was also rough. But in all of that, it never felt like I was supposed to do anything else. Like I would have been so justified in leaving and quitting at so many points throughout the year. But it never felt like it was what I was supposed to do. Cue the end of the year, I found out why. Part of me is like, what is destined will happen regardless. Another part of me is like, would it though? It's like, this is the reason why this is the reason why I was guided to stay. One of the many reasons. Like I said, like, just overcoming the challenges and facing the fears. And now, as I like, this year was the perfect intermediary, the perfect in between, the perfect like first full job as a degree holder for me, or like my first adult job in general. Not even as a degree holder, but like my first adult job at like when I'm not a student working full time. I've had full time jobs over summers, but again, it's different. It was perfect because it hasn't overly inflated my ego, but it's also taught me that it's okay for me to challenge myself. And it also taught me that I can try. At the very least, I can try. So, whew, it did, but in like the best way. And it's ending gorgeously. Okay. All right. Now I need to get the final card and go to bed because it's been 3 hours. There's only like 2, so not even a full hour of like actual cards, I feel like. But now my TV, it's been so long. My TV screen is like, okay, you done? Oh, I just saw a blank card. All right. Whispers of Lord Ganesha. Last card for the road to shut this video down. Please. I'm trying to close my eyes because there's a blank card in here. Ooh. We get 2 cards. Bottom of the deck is personal transformation again. What I like about this is this makes me think of Neptune. It makes me think of the Neptune card, how it was like pushing the hands together. It's like Neptune is doing something with like dark matter or antimatter, and it's alchemizing it through the process or through the astral dream space into actual physical matter. With like these little orbs, like these dark orbs, and then he's like, there's the gold in the trunk, and then like this one is actively being alchemized. Because it's like it feels like, or it looks like it's a shade lighter than these out here. Like this is personal transformation is a process of anchoring the ethereal spiritual energetic into something that we can physically touch. That's a part of that process. That's what it's feeling like at the very least. 2 cards flipped over. We got nurture again. And positive outlook. I love that. Love that. Nurturing a positive outlook. Both of these are 11, a 38-11 and a 29-11. With a 35-8 personal transformation. And it is like the sun and the moon in here. But like again, if we're talking about like this dark matter to gold, this immaterial to physical, it's like that's what's happening up here. Like this one, it's like it's materializing, and then there it is, like fully formed. But there are many faces, there are many aspects. This is an interesting energy. Positive outlook and nurture. Nurturing a positive outlook, again, with personal transformation. What's under personal transformation? Courage. Courage and personal transformation. The blank card is behind that courage. This is the bottom of the deck. This lion is given to Ganesh, Lord Ganesha, from his mother. I'm pretty sure the lion comes from his mother. That's her gift to him, is courage. Courage to see the higher, the greater, the positive manifest. Rather than old fears, old pains, old hurts, old traumas, old everything, right? So, thank you, Holly and Sandra, for being here. This was whatever it was. I hope you all have an amazing whatever whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. The last 4 signs might be done tomorrow. The last 4 signs might not be done tomorrow. They'll more than likely be done before the new year, but now that I say that, they might not be. I don't know. I'll catch y'all later. Bye. Bye.